Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of my tutorial park. In today's episode I'm going to show you how to build a Larson Looper, but you can also use this tutorial to create a looping swinging ship. Now if you don't know what a Larson Looper is, I'll first show some examples. Okay, here you can see the website of Larson International. Here you can see one of their loopers, this is the giant loop, which is their large model of this ride. Yeah, basically it's just a train that swings around inside this loop a few times before finally it goes through the loop forward several times. And I believe after that it goes through the loop backwards several times. But you can find them in several parks, mostly in America I believe, and they're fun rides. Here's some more pictures of these rides. You have them in different heights. But yeah, I think they're definitely a nice eye catcher if you want to build one in your park. Okay, I've built several of these rides in some of my parks. Here you can see a version which uses the limb-launched roller coaster trains. It goes around this path here. Yeah, I think it's a really nice way to decorate this bridge. And over here I used the exact same method to create this looping swinging ship, except I used different vehicles here and the track is invisible. But it's really the same method. Okay, before I start building this ride in Tutorial Park, let's go name several more handymen after people who commented on the last Tutorial Park video. Alright, here you can see the new additions to the handyman squad. Thank you for commenting on this video, and if you also want to become a handyman in the park, just leave a fun or interesting comment on this video. Okay, this tutorial will mostly be based on an earlier tutorial that Vidwal made for the Larson Looper. I will leave a link in the video description. But yeah, this will more or less be an evolution on his tutorial. So we won't have a complicated track for splitting the vehicles, but we will use the right vehicle editor to move the vehicles into place. And we will also reverse some of the vehicles. Alright, to start off we're going to make the track which the train will run on. So this will also be the track that's going to be visible. You can also use other track types for this, but I think the twister coaster track looks nicest. I'm going to move it off the ground a little bit, and here we're just going to go steep like so. We're going to use a quarter loop and another quarter loop, and here we're going to go horizontal again. Oh, I actually quite like these colors, I might keep them. Alright, now we'll want to build the ride that spawns our vehicles. I'm going to use Steel Wild Mouse Coaster track for this, since it has these nice tight turns that will make it easy for us to do stuff. So right after the station here, I'm going to make a 180-degree turn. We're going to make a straight track piece. Make sure clearance checks are disabled. And here I'm going to build one track piece upwards, like so. And then these tracks are merged. And we'll want to make sure that the twister coaster track is at the bottom of the list in Tile Inspector. So I'm going to open Tile Inspector, we're going to hold Control, select this twister coaster track piece, and make sure it's below the Steel Wild Mouse track piece. Behind the Steel Wild Mouse coaster track we're going to put a few straight track pieces, and that's where we will spawn our train. Now, it doesn't have to be too long, since we're not going to have a very long train behind here. Okay, then below here we're going to build a control track, which will be the most complicated part of the tutorial. So over here I'm just going to build downwards into the ground. I'm going to restore this turn here. And let's use the cutaway view, so we have a clear vision of what we're doing. Here's our track piece that leads downwards. And let's go downwards a little bit more. Yeah, you don't have to go down really far, but I have the space for it in this park, so why not? Over here, just going to make another 180-degree turn. And over here, I'm going to make a straight track piece. Okay, then when we've built the straight track piece, I'm going to build a third ride. I'm going to use the twister coaster for this. And I'm gonna hold control over this track piece. And then build a straight track piece, so these tracks are now merged, and here I'm going to make an S-bend. And over here we can have the station for the ride. I'm gonna use 2 station track pieces. Sometimes if your station is very short, a vehicle may slightly overshoot the station and then it will travel very slowly through the ride until it goes to the end, and then it will crash. So having 2 station track pieces is the best way to go for rides that travel fast. Alright, behind the station I'm going to temporarily remove this S-band, and over here I'm going to place some brakes. So I'll start at a pretty high speed, and I'm just going to gradually lower the brake speed. Okay, and then I'm going to select this track piece again, and here we're going to rebuild the S-band. Then in Tile Inspector I'm going to select this brake piece here, and I'm going to make sure that the brakes are here at the bottom of the list. I don't want the trains from this track to go back to the S-band and up above ground, so that's why when the train passes by here, it will always have to go onto the brake track again. Alright, when we've built the station, up here we'll want to go up, like so. Over here we'll place a few straight track pieces. I think 4 or 5 should be okay. Then I'm going to temporarily remove this track piece here, and I'm going to build some more straight track over here. Again, 4 or 5 track pieces should be okay. Now for this horizontal track piece at the place where these track pieces meet, you'll have to make sure that it is below this other track piece, or else when the train goes back it will go back to the station, and we don't want that at this place yet. So make sure the horizontal track piece is below the other one. And then over here I'm going to make some boosters, and we're going to set them to 93 kilometers per hour. And behind this track here I'm just going to place some brakes in case the vehicle overshoots the track here. It shouldn't do that, but it's probably good to be sure. Gives us a little bit less chance for the train to crash. Alright, then over here we're going to add some more booster pieces. Once again we'll set them to 93 kilometers per hour. And then we're gonna have some more straight track. Now, you could just keep going straight here, but yeah, most parks you probably won't have the space. So if you want to extend this control track, it might be a good idea to once again switch to Steel Wild Mouse Coaster track for a moment. So for that we'll enable the Allow Arbitrary Ride Type Changes sheet. Here we'll switch to Wooden Wild Mouse or Steel Wild Mouse. We'll make a 180-degree turn, and then we change back to the Twister Coaster. Let's build that track piece first before we do the switch. There we go, straight track piece. Then we switch back to the Twister Coaster. And now we can just keep building boosters here. Now I think this should be enough boosters for the track. Alright, I'm just going to add some more straight track over here. Depending on how long this track is that you make here, yeah, the more revolutions the train will make in the loop. And then when you think you have had enough revolutions, over here we can build a spike upwards. Now I think I'm just gonna go immediately to vertical. So I'm gonna temporarily switch to the vertical drop roller coaster, and we're gonna make a really short transition to vertical, and here we'll make a big spike upwards. And this track will be invisible later, so I recommend disabling support limits and just building it to the height limit. Okay, there's a few more things we have to do before we can test the ride. Well, first off, it needs an entrance and an exit. We'll build those on the Wild Mouse track. So I'm just gonna make the entrance and exit over here. Make sure clearance checks are disabled. And then over here I'm gonna select no entrance, just to make it invisible for now. Now I will also have to change this Steel Wild Mouse track into a Twister Coaster once again. And that will make sure that the boosters that the train uses later are strong enough. Now I just realized there's also another important step that I just forgot. The track is not completely finished yet. Over here we'll want to make sure that the train returns back to the station when it arrives here. So over here I'm just going to remove one of these track pieces here, and here we're gonna make this track that leads downwards, and here we're just gonna build it into this part, And with the tile inspector, I'm just going to make sure that this slope piece here is selected, and I want it to be at the bottom of the list. If, for example, if this horizontal track piece would be at the bottom of the list, the train would, instead of going up here, it would go on the lower track. And we don't want that. So make sure the sloped track piece here is at the bottom of the list. And over here, I'm going to restore this track. And here, when the train arrives at this track piece while going backwards, we'll want it to go on the lower track here. So I'm just going to hold Control, select the lower track here, and make sure it's at the bottom of the list. Okay, for this twister coaster here, we'll also have to change the operating mode. For that, we'll go into Cheats, and we select Show All Operating Modes and Unlock Operating Limits. And here we'll set the ride to Powered Launch, Passing Station, and we're going to set the launch speed to 46 km per hour. That should be enough to get it over this little hill here. Alright, now we'll want to change the train type. Now, I've seen people use different trains for this ride type. My preferred pick is the modern twister trains, which are the trains for the new LSM launch coaster. So we're going to go into Cheats, and here we'll select Disable Vehicle Limits and Show Vehicles from other track types. And that should allow us to select the modern twisted trains. And you also have to make sure that they are the LSM launch coaster is enabled in the object selection, and that the ride is invented. Now over here, I'm going to change this to have one train. Now I want to have 2 vehicles on the below ground track and 4 on the above ground track. You could also do with 1 vehicle on the below ground track, but the boosters and brakes work better if you have more vehicles going over them. So that's why I want to have a little bit more vehicles on the below ground track. So with 4 vehicles above ground and 2 below ground, we'll have 6 cars per train. Okay, I'm going to test and immediately close the ride. So you can see these vehicles have spawned. And now with the Ride Vehicle Editor plugin, I'm going to move the first 2 vehicles to the below ground track and the rest of the vehicles onto this track here. Okay, I'm going to select vehicle 2 here. Over here I will select preceding vehicles on this train and we'll press synchronize. And now if I press forward, you can see the first 2 vehicles move. Now this process is a little bit slow, so I'm going to set the multiplier here to 10. I'm also going to use the cutaway view again, just so I can monitor this process. Okay, it looks like I messed up the merge over here, because only the vehicles stop over here. So I'm just going to make sure it works properly. And it looks like the red track is actually the lower one in the list. So here I'll just make sure that the orange track is lower in the list. And then the train should be able to pass here. So this is immediately a good check also if you did your merges correctly. For example, if I move backwards now, you can see the trains move onto the brake track here. So this one functions properly. The trains have now also moved on top of each other, but that's fine. Alright, the train is now in the station here. So when we start the ride, the train should just get launched from here. Now let's switch to the above ground track once again. So here I'm going to select vehicle 3, and here we select following vehicles on this train. And then with the tile inspector, I have to make sure that the track piece that's over here is actually below the track piece that leads down. Now I'm just going to quickly switch it back to where is it? To a wooden wild mouse, so we see these track pieces again. I'm going to move this one just to the bottom of the list. And then the trains should follow this track piece instead of the one leading down. So vehicle 3 is selected, following vehicles on this train. So if we then do the track progress, you can see all the vehicles move onto this track here. Now when they're fully on this loop, I will just move them backwards again. And it looks like they're now all on the loop track. But then I can switch this track back to Twister Coaster. Alright, we're almost ready to test the ride. I'm just going to open an extra viewport here. And I'm just going to center it on this ride. Holding the right mouse click button here, you can move the viewport around. Okay, we'll just keep this in the corner of our screen. And then over here I'm just going to hide a lot of stuff so we can see the underground track. So I'm going to do see-through paths, see-through scenery, vegetation. And I'm going to press H so we can see the below ground track here. It's going to rotate the screen a bit. Alright, well, there's still some stuff in the way, but we should be able to see what this train here is doing. Alright, and this is a good moment to save your game. So then, if you for some reason mess up here, then it's really easy to go back to how it was. So definitely recommend saving here. Alright, what we should see happening here when we press test is that the train gets launched up this little hill here. So let me recolor this track a bit so it's a little bit easier to see. So the train should get launched up this little hill here right after the station. Then it should move backwards here onto these boosters. It should get boosted to close to these boosters. It will probably go back another time. And then finally it will pick up enough speed. It will reach these boosters. It should rotate around the loop a few more times until finally here it reaches this spike. The vehicle will go partly up the spike. And then at some point the direction of this train will reverse. It will travel through the loop backwards several times. Over here the train should go onto the lower track, and then here it will pass the station once onto the brakes, and then it should move back to the station here. Alright, now we'll finally test the ride. Looks like it doesn't really make it over the hill there, so we'll have to up the launch speed a little bit. I'm just going to set it to 53 kilometers per hour. That should definitely be enough. And then we're going to test it again. Alright, makes it up the horizontal track here. Goes onto the boosters. Gets a little boost, but not enough to make it through the track there. Then it goes onto the boosters again, and now it should definitely have enough speed. And here it reaches the third set of boosters. And you can see the train moves forward over this loop several times. And here it reverses direction. And now it will go through the loop backwards several times. And here it moves onto the lower track. It bypasses the station. And here it returns back. So let's see it in action one more time. You can see it swings back and forth several times. Swings back one last time. Here it goes forward again with enough speed to make it through the loop. It will go forward several more times, and here it will start slowing down, and here it reverses direction. And it goes backwards through the track several more times. Here the train moves onto the lower track, and here it touches the brakes, so it starts slowing down again. So now the ride is already functional. Alright, there's a few more things we can do to make our ride prettier. Now I just closed it for now. And I'm going to go into the Ride Vehicle Editor plugin. And we're going to go to Vehicle 1. And we'll want the cars on the underground track to become invisible, because they will go up above ground on the vertical spike here. So for that I typically just change the vehicles that I want to be invisible to the maze type. There we go. So now those vehicles are invisible. Now and then for vehicle 3, which is the one here at the front, I'm going to change the variant to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'll change the variant to 0, and that will make it look like the front car. Now for vehicle 4, I'm going to reverse it with this checkbox, and I'm going to move it backwards slightly. And for vehicle 6, I'm also going to change the variant to 0, and I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to also move it back slightly. On the real versions of this ride, you can also have riders seated in alternate directions. So this is probably the closest approximation you can get to that. So now several of the vehicles are reversed, and the final vehicle also has this nice shape. Because we changed the weight of some of these vehicles, because changing them to maze definitely changes their mass, this may also be a good moment to test if the ride is still working. Just save beforehand and test the ride, and if it still functions correctly, yeah, then you can just keep it running like this. If it doesn't correctly, it may be a good idea to add some mass to some of the vehicles. Alright, we already built a station for this ride. I'm just going to make it visible again, and let's just quickly connect an exit path and a queue to this. Alright, we can now make the entrance and exit invisible. Now, before we do anything else, it might be a good idea to actually make sure that this ride calculates its stats. It doesn't look like it actually does that. So, to fix that, might be a good idea to make sure that the track here that leads to the bottom is here at the bottom of the list. And then we'll close the ride and retest it. And as you can see, the ride now does calculate its stats. However, they are a little bit on the extreme side. So we're just going to go into the ride vehicle editor plugin. I'm going to select this ride. And over here, I'm going to freeze rating calculation. Set the multiplier to 100. And let's make it a little bit less intense. The stats are this intense because of the tight turn I made underground, which it passed through at high speed. But so yeah, the extreme stats are just because of shoestring shenanigans. So that's why I also don't feel bad just changing them. So I can imagine this ride would cause a bit of nausea in people. So we can make the nausea rating pretty high. Intensity can probably also be a little bit pretty high. And excitement, yeah, let's also have it somewhere in the 6 range. Now, for this track over here, this Twister Coaster track, we'll probably want this track to be invisible since it looks really ugly. An easy way to do that is to use the Ride Editor plugin. So we're just gonna look up the name. It's called Twister Roller Coaster 1. So let's look it up in the list here. Well, we have 2 rides with the same name. I will just call this one X. And let's refresh the list. Alright, Twister Roller Coaster X is selected. All color schemes, and we're gonna click visibility here, and we're gonna set it to invisible, apply selected changes, and now this ride is invisible. Now we'll probably want to do the same for this track here. Yeah, this spike, it's a little bit on the tall side. You could do the same with the ride editor, but since no supports are showing here for this track anyway, we can just use the invisible color to make it invisible. Alright, next up we'll probably want to have a nice little platform under the ride, so for that I'm going to use a wooden roller coaster track, and we're going to use horizontal to sloped section, and I want to build it right below the track here. So in Cheats I'm going to enable allow building track at invalid heights, and then we can build right under the track here. Now I could also do a steep section here, but it will get really glitchy, so I'm just going to use this normal slope track here, and on the other side I'm going to do the same. And quickly gonna recolor it in a nice blue. And to finish off the platform, I'm going to add some poles here to the side. You could also use single rail coaster track for this, but I noticed it would glitch quite a bit. So that's why I prefer this method. You can even double them up a little bit if you want them to look a little bit more sturdy. Okay, as a final touch, I'm going to add an operator HUD to the right. Now I'm just gonna copy this one here. You can copy using these buttons, or you can use hotkeys. I've set Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V to copying and pasting. So I can just copy it here. And I'm gonna paste it here. So this will be our operator HUD. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of decoration around the ride. Alright, now we can open the ride, and we should soon see a lot of guests heading for it. Alright, we've arrived at the point where I'm going to add several more patrons to the park as an entertainer. I think on top of the loop here is a really nice spot. Alright, to patrons have been added to the park as an entertainer. Here on top of the triple launch coaster spike, we will find Bill Hinderman. Let me give the name a color. Alright, and here on top of the Larson Looper, we find Heather James. Yeah, thanks so much, both of you, for supporting me on Patreon. The support is really appreciated, and I hope you enjoy your spot in the park. And if you want a different color for your entertainer, please let me know. Alright, and if you're watching this and you also want to support my channel, you can find a link to my Patreon channel in the video description. Support is truly appreciated. Alright, that's going to be it for this Larson Looper tutorial. Once again, if you're interested in the original tutorial from Fitwel, you can find it in the video description. The method that's used to build it is a little bit different, but the end result looks pretty similar in the end. Now, if this tutorial is useful for you, please give it a like and really help out my channel. I would love to hear in the comments what you think of it. And if you leave a comment, you may also become a handyman in my park in the next episode. And if you want to see more videos like these, you can always subscribe to my channel. Alright, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you again in the next one. See you later.